My brother got my fiance pregnant right before we were supposed to get married. I told my family I couldn't forgive them and decided to move away. This is a wild story, and it's as unbelievable as it sounds. I'll try to keep it short, but there's a lot to explain. I don't mind if you believe it or not. It's so strange that I just need to share it. Also, I won't hide the details, but I'll leave out anything that might identify me to someone who doesn't know the situation. I'm 32 years old, and up until a few months ago, I was planning to marry my girlfriend of 5 years, who we'll call Sarah. My younger brother, Mike, who's 29, has always been the favorite in our family. To really understand how deep this betrayal goes and why it's so painful, you need to know more about my family background. Growing up, Mike was always the star in our parents' eyes, while I was always getting into trouble for small things. It wasn't just normal sibling rivalry or slight favoritism. It was clear and strong. Mike would mess something up and I would be blamed. He'd pick a fight and I'd end up punished. If we both got top grades, he'd get a new gaming console and I'd just get a pat on the back with a reminder to keep it up. Our parents, Tom and Linda, always made excuses for their behavior. Mike's younger. He needs more attention. You're older. You should understand. Mike's just more sensitive. We need to be gentle with him. This constant unfair treatment made me feel worthless and hated at home. As we got older, the favoritism got worse. When I got into a good college with a partial scholarship, my parents barely noticed. But when Mike decided to go to community college, they threw him a big party and even bought him a car for commuting. They didn't care that I had been biking 5 miles to my part-time job for years. I moved out as soon as I could to escape the toxic environment. I paid for college by working 2 jobs and taking loans. Meanwhile, Mike quit school after just 1 semester, claiming college wasn't for him. Our parents fully supported his decision, praising him for understanding himself and not following societal norms. They even funded his series of unsuccessful business ventures over the next few years. No matter how much I tried to distance myself from my family, they always managed to pull me back. Holiday dinners were a battlefield of subtle digs and obvious comparisons. Oh, you're still in that entry-level job? Well, Mike is thinking about starting another business. He's really got an entrepreneurial spirit, they'd say, ignoring that I was building a stable career while Mike was using up our parents' retirement funds. Despite it all, I tried to maintain a relationship with Mike. He was my brother after all. But it was always one-sided. I'd try to connect, but he'd either ignore me or turn the conversation into a competition he could win. If I got a promotion, he'd suddenly have a major opportunity on the horizon. If I started seeing someone, he'd suddenly be in a serious relationship too. I met Sarah while attempting to reconnect with Mike. She was friends with one of his ex-girlfriends, and we hit it off right away. Sarah was everything I'd hoped for in a partner. Intelligent, funny, kind, and breathtakingly beautiful. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt genuinely fulfilled and appreciated. Naturally, my parents weren't thrilled. They would make snide remarks, questioning what someone like Sarah saw in me and suggesting she was out of my league. Mike, however, became unusually interested in my life. He kept asking about Sarah, eager to know everything about her. At the time, I was just glad he seemed to care about aspects of my life. In hindsight, I should have seen the warning signs. After a year of dating, Sarah and I moved in together, and it was wonderful. We both had solid careers, traveled together, and talked about our future. I started to believe that I might actually have the life I had always dreamed of. A solid career, a loving partner, and maybe even kids one day. On our 4th anniversary, I proposed to Sarah. It was a simple evening with dinner at home and a heartfelt speech. I was overjoyed when she accepted. We decided on a long engagement to give us time to plan our wedding carefully. We felt no need to rush. It seemed like we had all the time in the world, or at least that's what I thought. When we shared our engagement news with my family, their reactions were mixed. My mom managed a forced smile and said, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that suggested she thought otherwise. My dad just grunted, muttered, "Good luck with that," and turned back to his TV. Mike's reaction was the oddest. He congratulated us, but his smile had an unsettling, almost predatory quality to it. I brushed off my discomfort, blaming it on my own anxieties. The next year was a whirlwind of wedding planning and intense work hours. Sarah and I were saving for the wedding and a house down payment, which meant long days at our jobs. We saw less of each other, but I figured it was just a tough phase. Every relationship has its challenges, right? In hindsight, there were signs I missed. Sarah became more withdrawn, constantly texting and laughing at messages from work friends she quickly brushed off. She started going out more often with friends, coming home late smelling of wine and cologne. I trusted her completely and never imagined she could be unfaithful, especially not with my brother. About 4 months ago, Sarah's behavior changed noticeably. She was often moody, irritable, and frequently nauseous. I was secretly thrilled thinking she might be pregnant. We hadn't planned for a baby yet, but we talked about starting a family in the future. I began imagining how I'd support her through the pregnancy, thinking of nursery themes and baby names. Then one evening, she sat me down, tears in her eyes, and dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine. I was shocked. We hadn't been intimate recently due to our busy schedules, but the thought of her cheating, especially with my brother, had never crossed my mind. When I confronted her about the father's identity, Sarah broke down and whispered, "It's Mike." In that instant, my world shattered. Everything I had believed in, the life I had built, seemed to collapse around me. I was gasping for air, unable to think, overwhelmed by a crushing sense of betrayal and loss. Sarah tried to explain, her words tumbling out through tears. "It all started at our engagement party," she said. "Mike had pulled her aside and told her she was making a mistake by planning to marry me. He preyed on her doubts, convincing her that she deserved better and that he could offer her everything I couldn't. It wasn't just a one-off thing. Their affair had been going on for months. I told Sarah to leave that night. The sight of her, the thought of her betrayal was too much to bear. She pleaded for forgiveness, claiming it was all a terrible mistake and that she truly loved me. But all I could think about was the countless lies, the times she had been with my brother, all while wearing the engagement ring I had given her. After she left, I phoned Mike. I don't remember all that I said. It was a blur of anger and hurt. At first, he tried to dismiss it as a meaningless, drunken error. But as I pressed him, he turned defensive. "Maybe if you had been a better fiancé," he snapped, "she wouldn't have turned to me." Fury took over. I stormed out to my car and drove to his apartment, filled with a vague but burning desire to make him regret his words. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but when I got there, our parents were already present. It turned out Mike had called them first, spinning a tale about how Sarah had seduced him and how remorseful he was, and they believed him. They always do. My mother started lecturing me about the importance of forgiveness and family, while my father just stood there, arms folded, a look of disappointment directed at me, not Mike. I tried to tell them the truth, but they wouldn't hear it. They kept insisting that I should forgive Mike and support Sarah during her pregnancy because family comes first. I couldn't hold back anymore. Years of built-up frustration and anger erupted. I lashed out at their skewed priorities, their constant preference for Mike over me, and their failure to ever really support me. I declared to Mike that he was dead to me, no longer my brother. To my parents, I said they could keep the son they always favored because they had lost me. I left them there, deaf to their pleas, and drove aimlessly for hours, needing to escape everything and everyone. When I finally returned home, I was greeted by a flood of missed calls and messages. Sarah was pleading for a second chance, while Mike swung between apologies and blaming me. Most messages were from my parents urging me to grow up and reconcile. I ignored them all, barely eating or sleeping, and used up all my vacation days because I couldn't bear to face anyone or share what had happened. I spent days cooped up in my apartment, obsessively analyzing every moment with Sarah and every encounter with Mike, wondering where I had gone wrong. 3 months have passed since then. I've moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and started therapy to cope with everything. But my family refuses to let go. Despite my efforts to sever ties, they keep intruding into my life. They've started showing up at my workplace, trying to force a reconciliation. My mother accosts me in the parking lot, crying about how I'm tearing the family apart. My father has left stern voicemails, admonishing me to man up and forgive Mike. Mike has tried to reach out several times, but I've avoided him successfully so far. They've even sent other relatives, whom I haven't talked to in years, to guilt trip me into forgiveness. Aunts, uncles, and cousins are suddenly reaching out, preaching about the importance of family and urging me to forgive and forget. It feels like my family lives in a parallel universe where Mike and Sarah's actions were just a minor slip-up instead of the life-shattering betrayal it actually was. Just yesterday, I got a message from Sarah. She's decided to keep the baby and plans to co-parent with Mike. And my parents, they're thrilled about becoming grandparents, completely overlooking how they used to criticize Sarah when she was with me. The message was laden with apologies and justifications, including how she and Mike supposedly found true love amidst this disaster. She even dared to express hope that we might all be friends one day for the sake of the child. I'm at my breaking point. Part of me wants to cut ties completely and start fresh, maybe move to a new state, change my identity, and build a life far from this chaos. Yet, another part of me is so filled with anger that I feel compelled to stay and confront the situation, to make them see just how messed up everything is. I'm torn about what to do next. This betrayal has infiltrated every part of my life. I can't stand being alone with my thoughts anymore. The thought of dating again terrifies me. How can I trust someone after this? I've even lost friends who think I should just forgive and reconnect with my family, as if I'm the one at fault for not wanting to pretend everything's fine with the people who hurt me the most. The idea of Sarah and Mike together, raising a child that could have been mine, feels like a constant knife twisting in my side. I know logically the child is innocent in all this. It's not the baby's fault its parents are deceitful and untrustworthy, but I can't help feeling bitter about its very existence. Now, my parents are even talking about how I should be involved in the child's life, how I'm supposed to be an uncle. The mere thought makes me sick. How can I look at this child and not see the ultimate symbol of my brother's betrayal? So, Reddit, I'm turning to you. Am I wrong for not wanting to forgive my brother and my ex-fiancée? Is it unjust of me to consider cutting off my family over this? I'd appreciate any advice on how to move forward, as I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of deceit and manipulation. Thank you for sticking with me through this long post. If you've read this far, I truly appreciate it. Putting everything into words has been somewhat therapeutic. I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking for by sharing this. Maybe it's validation, advice, or just a way to vent to someone, anyone who might listen. Update. Wow, I didn't expect to wake up to such a massive response. Thank you all for the support and advice. I'm overwhelmed by the sheer number of responses, and it'll take some time to go through all the comments. However, I want to address a few recurring questions. 1. Yes, I've been in touch with a lawyer about obtaining a restraining order against my family. That process is underway. 2. I've decided not to have any involvement with the baby. It's not the child's fault, but interacting with them would be too detrimental to my mental health. 3, regarding my job, I've already discussed the situation with HR. They're supportive and have taken measures like enhancing security at the front desk and allowing me to work from home more often. I'm grateful for their understanding. 4, many of you asked if I've considered moving to another city or state. It's definitely on my mind. My company has branches in various cities, and a transfer might be an option. I'm weighing the pros and cons. 5, concerning a DNA test. Sarah admitted to the affair and the timing lines up. I don't doubt that the child is Mike's. Even if it turned out to be mine, the pain associated with this situation would prevent me from forming a relationship with the child. 6, I am heartbroken yet oddly comforted by how many of you have shared similar experiences of betrayal. It's sad to see how common this is, but it helps to know I'm not alone. 7, someone asked if I considered suing Mike for alienation of affection. I looked into it, but my state doesn't recognize such claims. Besides, I'm not up for a legal battle at this moment. Again, thank you all for opening up and sharing your stories. It means a lot to me. 8, many commenters have pointed out that Mike's actions seem to align with traits of narcissistic personality disorder. I've started educating myself on the disorder, and many descriptions do match his behavior. This understanding helps me grasp his actions better, though it certainly doesn't excuse them. 9, regarding inquiries about Sarah's family, they were as shocked and disgusted as anyone could expect. They've severed ties with her and have reached out to offer me support. While it's a small consolation, I genuinely appreciate it. 10, for those wondering if I ever think about having children of my own, this whole ordeal has made me question whether I want a family in the future. However, I'm trying to hold off on any life-altering decisions until I've had time to process everything. I'll keep you posted if there are any significant updates, but right now, my focus is on healing and moving forward. Thank you again, Reddit. The encouragement and advice I've received from this community have been incredibly helpful and provided me a sense of not being alone during this difficult time. While I might not respond to every comment, please know that I read each one, and your words have been a great comfort to me. Update, hello Reddit. It's been about 2 weeks since my last update, and what a tumultuous time it has been. First off, I want to express my gratitude for the overwhelming support and advice. I didn't expect my story to resonate with so many people, and reading your responses has been both heartbreaking and strangely comforting. It's alarming how common such betrayals are. The past few weeks have been challenging. Remember I mentioned working on getting a restraining order? Well, it turned into a bigger ordeal than I anticipated. My lawyer filed the necessary documents and we were scheduled for a hearing. I thought it would be straightforward, given the evidence and ongoing harassment. However, I underestimated the situation. My parents showed up at the court with their lawyer, a slick professional in an expensive suit, likely earning more per hour than I make in a week. They tried to paint me as the unstable one in court, alleging that I was tearing the family apart over a trivial misunderstanding, as if Mike had accidentally tripped and fallen into a relationship with my fiancé. Thankfully, the judge saw through their act. She granted the restraining order against Mike and my parents, but not before my mother broke down crying in court and my father shot me a look that could kill. The expression on Mike's face was chilling. If glares could be lethal, I wouldn't be here. As we exited the courthouse, Mike tried to confront me. My lawyer quickly intervened, reminding him of the restraining order's boundaries. Mike just scoffed, ominously warning that this wasn't the end and that I couldn't hide behind a court order forever. His words unnerved me, but at least I now had some legal shield. Meanwhile, the situation at work escalated further. I had previously mentioned that my family had been making unwelcome visits to my office. Last week, this culminated during a critical client meeting. My assistant nervously informed me that my mother was in the lobby causing a scene. She had brought along a photo album showing off pictures of Mike and me as children to my colleagues while tearfully reminiscing about how close her sons once were. I had to excuse myself from the meeting and confront the situation in the lobby, where I found my mother amidst several uncomfortable-looking coworkers sharing stories about our childhood. Upon seeing me, she rushed over, babbling about planning a baby shower. But I cut her off. I firmly told her she needed to leave immediately or I would call the police to enforce the restraining order and have her removed for trespassing. Her shocked expression mirrored the impact of a physical blow, but after all they had done, my sympathy was exhausted. Security escorted her out and I was left to explain the situation to my employer and coworkers. While most were understanding, I sensed some were uneasy about the personal drama spilling into our professional environment. The altercation with Mike was what truly derailed everything. Last Saturday, while at the gym releasing some pent-up frustration on a punching bag, I was so focused that I didn't notice anyone approaching until I heard his voice. I turned around to see Mike, smirking as if he hadn't just violated the restraining order. He started to speak loudly, making sure others around could hear. I told him to leave or I'd call the police, but he just scoffed, threatening to tell them how I had threatened him and Sarah. That's when I snapped. I threw a punch, hitting him squarely on the jaw. He staggered back and then lunged at me. We tumbled to the floor, exchanging punches like we were kids again, except this time, there were no parents to pull us apart, no one telling me to let Mike win for the sake of peace. I landed a few solid hits before gym staff broke us up. Mike's nose was bleeding, and I could feel my own face swelling. We both yelled, each of us trying to break free from the staff holding us back. The gym manager's threat to call the police finally snapped me back to reality. I grabbed my things and left quickly. As I drove home, still shaking from the adrenaline, my phone rang from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Sarah, furious, accusing me of breaking Mike's nose and claiming he might need surgery. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of her anger towards me, given everything they had done. I sarcastically apologized for injuring her boyfriend, the same man she had cheated with for months. She started crying, lamenting about her stress and how the baby could sense her distress. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. The fallout from the fight spread rapidly through our social circles. My phone was inundated with messages. Some people supported me, while others criticized me for attacking my supposedly defenseless brother. Sarah's parents reached out once more, offering their support for me and sharing their disappointment in their daughter. It was a small comfort, but at this stage, any support was welcome. The effectiveness of the restraining order is now in question. Mike has shown he's willing to ignore it, and I'm worried about what he might do next. The legal repercussions have been overwhelming. The day after the gym incident, my lawyer informed me that Mike had filed assault charges against me. I explained how he had broken the restraining order and provoked the confrontation. My lawyer sighed, acknowledging we'd contest the charges, but admitted it could be challenging since I had thrown the first punch. We're now preparing to file charges against Mike for violating the restraining order. My lawyer believes this will strengthen our case, though nothing is certain. I've had to give police statements, show them my facial bruises and injured knuckles, and explain why I had to defend myself against my own brother, which has been demeaning. Following the brawl, both Mike and I have been permanently banned from the gym. It's a shame because the gym was one of the few places where I could healthily vent my frustrations. Recently, my cousin Amy, who has always been supportive, called me. She's faced a lot of backlash from our family for standing by me but remained steadfast. She shared some unsettling news about the family's narrative. My parents have been telling people that I'm having a mental breakdown. They're claiming that Sarah and Mike's affair started only after Sarah and I had broken up, suggesting that my actions are due to jealousy and an inability to move on. Amy mentioned that while most of the family is dubious, some believe the rumors. It's frustrating to hear that they are spreading these lies while I'm trying to heal. Things at work have also become strained. Following the incidents with my mother in the lobby and the fight with Mike, which somehow became a local social media sensation, I've noticed my coworkers are wary around me. My manager pulled me aside this week. He started by affirming his appreciation for my work and acknowledging the tough times I'm facing. Then he suggested that it might be best for me to take a leave of absence until the situation stabilizes. He framed it as a personal sabbatical, which would be paid. I wanted to protest to explain that my job was the only anchor I had left, but it was clear the decision was out of my hands. So, I agreed, expressed my gratitude for his understanding, and started packing up my office. As I was leaving, I overheard a couple of coworkers whispering about how my brother had gotten my fiancée pregnant. Frustrated, I slammed my office door a bit too loudly on my way out, drawing a startled reaction from them. The truth is, all of this is wearing on me. I've begun taking long drives at night just to escape my apartment. Sometimes I end up parked outside the house I once shared with Sarah, lost in thoughts about where everything went wrong. During this tumultuous period, I received unexpected support from Sarah's younger sister, Emma. She reached out via social media, apologizing for her sister's actions and offering her sympathy. Initially, I was wary, suspecting a setup. However, after chatting with her, it became clear she was genuinely appalled by what Sarah had done. Emma has been updating me about Sarah and Mike. They've moved in together, seemingly oblivious to the wreckage left behind. Emma revealed that Sarah has been playing the victim, tearfully telling anyone who would listen about how this was all a big mistake and how she and Mike are meant to be, having found each other against all odds. While it's distressing to hear, I'm grateful for the updates from Emma. Knowledge is power, even if it's knowledge I wish I didn't need. Meanwhile, the social media frenzy has been overwhelming. I've always valued my privacy, but this scandal has unwillingly pushed me into the limelight. A post about the gym altercation appeared on a local Facebook page, clearly by one of Mike's friends. It didn't name us, but the details were specific enough that anyone familiar with us could connect the dots. The comment section turned into a war zone. Some people came to my defense, arguing that Mike got what was coming to him. Some people called me unstable and clamored for me to be institutionalized. One night, after a few too many drinks, I made the error of scrolling through the comments. That was a big mistake. In a moment of frustration, I ended up throwing my phone across the room, shattering the screen. Since that incident, I've deactivated most of my social media accounts. The constant barrage of notifications and messages from people I haven't talked to in ages, all eager for the sordid details of my private ordeal, became too much to handle. With everything that's transpired, I've come to realize that staying in this city is no longer an option for me. There are too many painful memories and too many chances of encountering Sarah, Mike, or my parents. I've begun exploring opportunities for internal transfers at work, and there's a promising lead in our Seattle office. It's not perfect. I'm not exactly enthusiastic about the rain. But at this point, I'd relocate anywhere to escape this chaos. I haven't committed to anything yet, but the idea of starting anew is growing more appealing by the day. A new city, a new apartment, a new life where nobody knows me as the guy whose brother betrayed him. Since the restraining order, my parents have been notably quiet, but I'm bracing myself for their next move. Sarah, on the other hand, hasn't been shy about her pregnancy. Emma reports that Sarah has been prolific on social media, sharing ultrasound images, belly photos, and posts about how blessed she and Mike feel and their excitement about starting a family. Each update from her is like reopening a wound, just as I start to think I'm healing. That's the current state of affairs. 2 weeks ago, I thought things couldn't get worse, yet here we are. The anger and hurt persist, but now there's an added exhaustion. I'm tired of having to defend my actions and my feelings. So Reddit, this isn't so much an update as it is perhaps a cry into the void. I'm not even sure what I'm asking for at this point. Do I need advice, sympathy, or perhaps a time machine to prevent ever introducing Sarah to my brother? Whatever the case, I'll try to keep you all updated. Your support has been invaluable during this time. It's reassuring to know there are still good people out there, despite feeling surrounded by betrayal and deception. Final update. Hello, Reddit. It's been a week since my last post, and I believe this will be my final update regarding this entire ordeal. First off, I want to express my deepest gratitude for the support and advice I've received from this community. Your words have been a beacon during one of the darkest periods of my life. So, what's new? A lot has transpired in just a week, and I'm still processing it all. I suppose the biggest news is that I'm relocating. Yes, I've decided to take the plunge and accept a transfer to our Seattle office. It wasn't an easy decision, but given everything that's happened, I felt a fresh start was necessary. The decision came after a particularly tough day last week. I had just come back from another session with my lawyer about the assault charges Mike filed when I found a note from Sarah in my mailbox. I nearly threw it away unopened, but curiosity prevailed. Inside was an ultrasound photo along with a handwritten note expressing how happy she and Mike were about their upcoming child. She also expressed a hope that I could find it within myself to be happy for them and mentioned how delighted the baby would be to have me as an uncle. That set me off. Before I knew it, I'd unblocked Sarah's number, called her, and unleashed everything I had been holding back. I told her it was delusional to think I'd ever want any involvement with their child and that they could all go to hell. It wasn't my finest moment, but it was liberating to finally voice everything I'd been bottling up. That confrontation was the last straw. I realized I could no longer stay in this city. That very night, I contacted my boss and requested the transfer to Seattle. Honestly, my boss seemed relieved when I told him about my decision to move. He was worried about how the ongoing drama might impact the company and promised to fast-track the paperwork. By the next morning, everything was official. I had 2 weeks to pack up my life and move across the country. Word of my relocation quickly spread among my family and friends. As expected, my parents were furious. They showed up at my apartment unannounced, once again violating the restraining order. In an attempt to dissuade me from leaving, my mother cried, accusing me of abandoning the family, while my father berated me, calling me selfish and immature. I refused to engage with them. Instead, I called the police to enforce the restraining order. As they were escorted away, my mother shouted that I would regret this decision, that family was everything, and I was throwing it all away. I shut the door on her words and went back to my packing. Mike's reaction was more subdued, likely due to the legal entanglements. He didn't reach out directly but posted a lengthy rant on social media, painting himself as a victim and suggesting that some people couldn't stand to see others happy. He and Sarah were, according to him, rising above the hatred to focus on their new family. It hurt to see the support he received, but I reminded myself that those people didn't know the whole story. Sarah's reaction, however, was unexpectedly intense. After our phone call, she spoke to her sister Emma, who had been my informant about her and Mike. Emma shared that Sarah was deeply affected by my words, breaking down and admitting the severity of what she and Mike had done and expressing fear for the future. My cousin Amy ever supportive, came over to help me pack. She also had news from the family front. Amy told me about a major fallout between my mother and her sister. My aunt had confronted my mother, accusing her of favoritism towards Mike and of driving me away. My aunt argued that my parents were now facing the consequences of their actions. Hearing that someone had finally called them out was a small comfort amidst the chaos. My lawyer has reassured me that relocating will not affect the ongoing legal proceedings. We are continuing to press charges against Mike for violating the restraining order, and we're also defending against the assault charges he has filed against me. My lawyer is confident that the judge will see through Mike's narrative, especially given his history of ignoring the court's orders. The fact that I'm moving across the country should reinforce my stance that I pose no threat to Mike, which might help in getting his charges dismissed. I'm not sure if I'll provide more updates after this. Part of starting anew is leaving the past behind, and although sharing here has been immensely supportive, I think it's time for me to stop revisiting these events. I need to focus on building my new life in Seattle rather than dwelling on the past. So, I believe this will be my last update. Wish me luck, Reddit. I'm looking forward to starting fresh and making the most of my new beginning in Seattle. Thank you all for your support and for sticking with me through this saga. Have a great day, and remember to like, share, and subscribe if you found this journey enlightening. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated with more incredible real-life stories. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so to keep up with more shocking real-life stories.